Well, okay, if you've seen the orientation, we can move on to the practical skills portion. So this is what's going to happen on the actual day of a sled course, or you could do this training on shift too. All you need is a big wide open area and a bunch of pylons and a way to measure it all off. Go ahead and use a screenshot of this for a reference. Another resource that isn't going to hurt is going to be the check sheet. So this is the evaluation form right from the Alberta Snowmobile Association. So right before we get started, making sure that we have approved safety helmets. That's one that has either a DOT or a Snell rating. Make sure we all know how to perform a pre-start safety check. Follow safe starting procedures. And also make sure that it's safely unloaded. If someone has never been on a snow machine before, maybe give that set of objectives to the more experienced person around. And the rest we'll see listed there too, as far as proper braking distances and speed control, and adjusting different riding positions. So the main objectives we're going to try to take away from this is making sure that we have good throttle control, that the person's using consistent spacing, that they're controlling the sled in a deliberate manner, shifting their weight and turns, and using a bunch of different riding positions. On to exercise 1. This is just getting started, very basic. Start, stopping, reversing. You're going to get someone to stage up in one certain area. We're going to have a track measured out, and they're just going to proceed along down that track and stop at the end. You're just going to make sure that they can put the sled in park and use the parking brake, and then they're just going to reverse back to the staging area. You can do this 2 by 2 if there's multiple people, or if you're really not sure and they're uncomfortable, 1 by 1, not a big deal. But just proceed to do this a couple times until everyone's comfortable. And make sure they do know how to set their parking brake. And objectives you'll see are listed on the left-hand side of all these different pages. On exercise 2. So this is going to be all about throttle control and spacing, just basic riding. And what we're going to have to do here is get everyone all set up and spaced out and send them off around the course. So all this is going to be is just doing a couple laps around the outside of the course. Just make sure that students are maintaining spacing, or whoever is doing the riding is just, keeping equal spacing between themselves and whoever's in front. And this is just an opportunity for everyone to get used to the handling characteristics, how the throttle feels, how the brake feels, and get people to do a couple laps in each direction. And when you're done, just send them all off to the staging area and we can start again. Again, if you need to look at any of the objectives, just look on the side of this sheet here. So again, we're really just making sure that people are single file, monitoring their throttle and their distance. And if you need someone to sort of set the pace, having a little more experience of a rider in there somewhere isn't going to hurt either. Okay, moving along, exercise 3. So this is really just going to evaluate turning technique, and we're going to do this on the inside of the course. We're going to make a little small oval. And all that we're really going to do here is, again, get the students in, get whoever you want in to do a couple turns around the small oval. And this is really going to have to emphasize the leaning of the snowmobile and getting in a good turn. Keep an eye on the throttle spacing and making sure everyone stays, equally spaced apart. And emphasize the fact that they really need to lean. So whatever way they start, give them a few laps, and don't be afraid to kick them out and get them going in the other direction, just because with a snow machine and a thumb throttle, it's going to feel a little bit weird going in a different direction, maybe when the throttle is so close to your body. So a couple laps in each direction, make sure everyone's comfortable, and we can move on. All right, on to exercise 4. This is going to be small circles, so still within that inner oval, and a figure 8. So the objective of this is really just getting someone, maybe one at a time to start with, get them going around the small circles, get them used to crossing and doing the figure 8. So at least a couple laps of each would be a good idea. So a couple laps clockwise, couple laps counterclockwise, and then when they're comfortable with that, send them off to do an entire figure 8 or 2. And again, we're just watching for body position and technique. And as long as they do a minimum of a lap or 2 around in each direction and a figure 8 or 2, then that's enough. Now, if you have a bunch of more experienced riders, you can kind of do a figure eight derby. The idea of this is really just spacing, throttle control, and scanning for people coming and yielding right of way to the sled on the right-hand side. Okay, exercise 5. Now this is going to be turning and throttle control, so we're going to be using a large oval still, and we're going to be cutting the corners a little bit differently. So we're going to be going along the outside of the pylons and cutting back in. So this is going to be emphasizing that when you take a sharp turn, to let off the throttle just before making the turn, and that's going to cause the weight balance to shift forward, get your skis to dig in, and that's going to help you turn and rotate around a turn a lot better, and then throttle on the exit. So making sure that the students brake prior to the turn, getting that weight shift to the front of the sled, and then accelerating once they exit the turn. And while all this is happening, just sort of evaluate each rider on every couple turns or so. And again, the basics still apply, making sure that there's proper spacing and that brake and throttle control is smooth and turning's deliberate. And we're all staying evenly spaced out. All right, on exercise 6. Exercise 6 is going to be the last evolution we do on the course. It's going to be swerving or doing a slalom around the pylons. So again, everyone's spaced apart, and we're just going to send everyone around the perimeter, and they're going to slalom through all of the pylons. And this is really just putting everything together, so making sure that they use a short throttle burst after they turn out, brake, lean, turn in, and throttle on the way out again. That's a pretty good example. So just make sure everyone's following the same sort of path as that guy did, and get them to do a couple laps in each direction. If you find that it's just becoming a bit of a toboggan course because the trail's getting packed down, just send someone around the opposite way so we have a little bit of variation there. But this is really the last one. I imagine people should be pretty confident by the end of it. And then we move on to the final one, exercise 7. So we're going to need to find hills for this. This isn't very practical to do unless you actually have a different area to do this in. But as far as the hill goes, it's just using the different body positions when climbing a hill. So making sure that the weight is down, pushing down on the handlebar and the front end of that sled, and your feet are further back on the tunnel. Go up, side hill around, making sure your weight is to the outside of the turn, and then just descend back down on the sled. And we'll get people to do this a bunch of different times. So again, standing up, making sure weight's down on the handlebars of the sled. Once you reach the side hill portion, move your body to the outside, and then sit back down for the descent. And that's really it. You've just done the introductory part of a snowmobile course. And this could be done in a few hours on shift, so if you want to get crews familiar with the handling of a snow machine, even if they're not necessarily going to be responding, it might not be a bad thing to do. Well, if you made it this far, thanks. There's a kind of sled course with pylons to cut your teeth with, but hopefully that was not too painful. Thanks for watching, and see you around.